Green, of course, you know Roger Snell, he's one of our members here with the Dayton Diggers. And they have their slideshow, and they'll make a presentation and then take questions if you have any questions. We'll adjourn after that for our meeting and refreshments downstairs.
Thank you everyone for coming out here tonight, allowing me to speak to you about a hobby that's pretty passionate to me. I don't know if you're familiar with Privy digging or if you've gotten to hear anything about it ahead of time, but essentially we are into doing a lot of historical research. We like to document and catalog our finds. One of our great interests is actually antique bottles and jars. We have a few of them on display up here. And the source for these on this table, at least the ones I brought tonight, they've come out of Privy vaults. And what we mean by Privy vault is before we had indoor plumbing, each home had an outdoor toilet. And in the bottom of that pit, they lined the pit in cities about 6 to 10 feet deep. They lined them with brick, stone, or wood, and that's also where they threw all their non-combustible trash and stuff they couldn't burn, because we didn't have waste to pick up back in the 1800s. So that's where it all goes. So we use a lot of records, maps, books, vintage newspapers to ascertain where historic artifacts may be found. We use Sanborn fire insurance maps as a tool that we use a lot. It'll actually show you a snapshot of the neighborhood from usually 1880s to very early 1900s. And you can actually on occasion find a Privy on the Sanborn map. A typical Privy vault lasted about 10-15 years, so an older property may have several vaults on the property. The Dayton Diggers organization was formed January 2009. It was my own brainchild, I guess you want to say. Always had a big passion for history. Always liked to go out and research and find artifacts and so forth. And I knew there was a lot of people working around the Miami Valley that like to do the same thing. And maybe we could all get together and share our interests and combine efforts. We do a lot of good community efforts. We have responded to several lost rings, including Officer Dooley, whose ring was found by Bill Baker of our club. You see Sheriff Siff from Warren County there at our cookout. We also raised some funds for the widow and family. The widow was very happy for us to find that ring returned. We research existing records, maps, books, finishing, like we said. Our tools include metal detectors, probes, and hand shovels. We practice responsible recovery of relics, including coins, tokens, marbles, bottles, and cans. We also metal detect. Obviously, I've been kind of touching on that. Privy digging is a pretty simple operation. We've got basic hand tools that we use. This is a homemade probe for finding the privies. Essentially, it's spring metal steel, about 5/16. It has a stainless steel ball bearing welded to the tip of it and a simple pipe handle. And this allows us to penetrate the ground where we think, and usually we start on the back of the property line because everybody on their house will always from the house. We take the probe the ground. A spot that has been dug previously has a totally different feel to it. I mean, it might have real soft compared to the ground around it being hard. There might be layers, you might hear glass, because sound glass will actually travel pretty well through that spring metal. And sometimes you break really good bottles or jars while you're doing this part of it. But once you think you have something, then you kind of go to a 45-degree angle, and you'll usually bang up against a wall. They're usually, like I said, lined with brick, stone, or wood. So the stone and the brick's still there. It's safe. Strong walls typically, unless something detrimental happen. Wood can be a different story though. Before the advent of indoor plumbing, this during the 19th century was necessary to build Privy in one's backyard. And this is kind of a picture of a later Privy being done probably by the Works Progress Administration during the Depression. And essentially they had a pre-made liner that they're dropping down the hole. This is every yard in town that's pre-plumbing has at least one Privy vault in the backyard. It's probably loaded with items. Okay. The bottles and ceramics that were tossed out as trash over 100 years ago need not be washed. safely remove them without any lasting effects on lawn or landscaping. Obviously, if it's in a manicured area of the lawn, we'll cut the sod, lay it off to the side, dig it, put everything back, put the sod back on. We always come back in a month, 2, 3 months, whatever the weather dictates, to check on it. We've dug numerous vaults throughout the Miami Valley, Cincinnati, northern Kentucky. Essentially, we lay tarps around the dig area. Like I said, cut the sod, lay it off to the side. We just use common shovels. I mean, these are my two favorite Privy digging tools right here. A standard shovel and a little small shovel for down the side of the tight one. We use bucket and rope method to get the dirt out of the hole. Once the hole gets too deep, to just start swinging it. And we put a rope and bucket system together, using a pulley sometimes if it's a really big pit. Right here's some Dayton Diggers members filling in a Privy. That sometimes is the worst part of the job, because after you spend all your time probing the yard, which wears you out, and then digging anywhere from 6 to 12 feet deep, then you got to fill it all back in. And it wears people out. We all had to take a break that day, which I didn't blame them. And they also are not the cleanest and safest. Now, as far as a lot of people think bacteria in that because of what it was used for, the truth is bacteria ate away the organic waste that was in that pit and has turned it back to soil, and the bacteria is now deceased. And it usually is just typically a clean, ashy environment. There's a lot of animal bones where they butchered their own meat back then, and any kind of stuff they couldn't burn. On the previous slide, you saw Brandon was standing in water, and unfortunately they hold water from time to time, and we have to bail water as we go. That makes me even more excited. It usually happens in the wintertime when it's really cold out. And this slide, Phil, right there is our bucket and rope system that we use. Very basic tools. There's not much involved. It's a very safe, tight, laid brick walls around them. We never had any incidents. We always have a crew that watches on top for any kind of signs of cracking or anything. If there's any kind of issue, we always make sure we get out quick.
What gases?
If you get a really deep vault, there may be some methane gas in that, and sometimes there's still some potential odor or bacteria thing, but it has to be a really deep, wet one. I'm talking like 20 feet typically. And most of them in Dayton that I've done are 6 to 10 feet, so we never have run into that. This is a Privy dig that the club did for the city of Spring Valley. They're trying to get a museum together down there. Peggy invited us down there, and it's an 1870s hotel. It's right on the railroad, and we actually probed up 3 Privies in the very back of the lot, and we had 2 crews digging 2 different Privies at the same time in the wintertime when it was very cold out. But we got some really nice bottles. The museum got over 40 bottles donated to them. This right here was kind of one of the more interesting bottles. It was a Hollenkamp and Weddell blob top beer from Dayton, Ohio. Hollenkamp, of course, had a big interest in brewing in Dayton, but they were also, I guess, apparently working with Mr. Weddell there in Xenia Brewing, which I had not previously known. This is one of our Dayton Diggers members that was in the Air Force and now got transferred to Idaho, that we missed, but man, he's got a freshly dug amber medicine bottle there. And there's a little bit more of a close-up on the Xenia blob top. But what we mean by blob top is the way the bottle is made at the very top. It's typically an 1880s, 1890s type bottle with that type of top on it. And here we've got Mike and Brandon having fun out there at the dig. Mike's got a large medicine or druggist bottle of some kind in his hands. And Brandon's just, well, Brandon became Brandon. That's basically all the pictures we put together for you. We, like I say, wanted to talk about the bottles a little bit and then open it up to a question and answer. I collect Dayton stuff. I'm from Dayton. I've lived in Dayton all my life, so my interest is in Dayton. And if you notice this stuff here, you can only have so many piles like that in your house before you realize you can't collect everything. So I try to concentrate on Dayton, Ohio stuff. This one right here is a William Sanders Sons Wines and Liquors, 23 East 3rd Street, Dayton, Ohio. So it's been like a little whiskey type bottle. this was actually given to me by a friend of mine that knows I collect Dayton stuff. But, did a lot of those type things. I had never done that particular one, so I thought that was neat. This is a dig that we did just recently down in Cincinnati, St. Bernard area. George W. Kylius, San Marco Farms, East Walnut Hills, Cincinnati area. I don't know, there may be a bottle like this with Springboro's name on it. Pharmacy, drugs type bottles, they're not uncommon to find in small cities. Products that were popular back in the 1800s, vinegars and sauces. They had a lot of rancid meat because we didn't have refrigeration back then, so a lot of hot sauces, olive oils and stuff came in stuff like this. Fruit jars, I don't know if there's anybody here who knows anything about fruit jars or not, but fruit jars have been around for a long time. There was a ship that went down on the Missouri River. I don't know if anybody's familiar, I can't remember the name of it right now, but in 1857, went down the Missouri River. It was packed full of jars of stuff just packed away. There's been so many different jars over the years, different styles and different types. This is probably circa 1880s, 90s, I'm not really sure, 1900 maybe. It's a ground lift gin. Seems like the ground lift's what, 1890s?
1880s to 1990.
Yeah. Jars are not my expertise. Before we had glass fruit jars, of course, they put preserves and fruits and stuff up in clay vessels, such as this right here. Really large size. Your typical whiskey bottles, they call that a lot of times like a lady's leg. That one's not too, sometimes a little exaggerated. This has got what we call sickness to it. This is an as found from the Privy pretty much bottle. And if you'll notice, there's a lot of mineralization coming out on it. It'll have all kinds of drastic colors and then like an oily sheen and the white stuff on it. That's just the mineral buildup and sickness that we call it on the glass. We actually have bottle cleaning machines that tumble this and light chips of copper in that and cleans that off. Every once in a while I keep one as is. This is a circa 1870s ale bottle pit that we dug in the east side of Dayton. Was just loaded with them. Most of these have no embossing, so you don't know who they were from, but some of them were from the Hydraulic Brewery in Dayton, which was like 1870 era, in Metz and Company, which they were in business from 1871 to 1874. I get a kick out of researching this stuff when I find it. My specialty is probably sodas. This is what they call a Hutchison type soda. Hutchison type soda was invented about 1878 or 79, I forget which year. Real popular in the 1880s, 90s, and even as far up as 1920, although not common past 1910. And this is where the name pop came about from this bottle here. The way it was made, there was a copper wire, or steel wire I guess it was, with two copper discs and a rubber seal in there. And when the bottle was filled, they pulled that ring up and that sealed the bottle. When you went to open it, you slammed that back down and it made a loud pop sound. That's where soda pop got its name. This is a very early Dayton bottle. This was also given to me by one of my collecting friends. It has quite a bit of damage on the back, but real nice on the front. It's R. Schmidt and Company, Dayton, Ohio, and it's in a nice kind of forest green type color. Kind of like a pony squat, they call them, and we really like to see stuff like this. Popular colors and bottles are greens and yellows and blues. Your common colors are aquas and clears. But even in some of the later stuff, this is, some people might even remember this. These things are becoming very popular now. This is jumbo peanut butter from Cincinnati. They all had elephants embossed on them, and they're becoming quite popular these days. And the other things you tend to find, a lot of smoking pipes made out of clay, porcelain. This one's marked from Dublin, Ireland. It was made in Dublin. There's a lot of jar closures and so forth that you find. Pretty much, you never know what you're going to dig in the Privy. We found some really interesting things over the years. Cannonball, just any mentionable thing you can think of. There's a lot of times boots that are preserved down the bottom of them. I found egg shells from the 1800s that like almost a whole egg. It's light bulbs that are down in the pit, not busted. It's just really weird. Anybody have any questions they want to ask me about privy digging in general?
Have you found many old coins?
I typically don't. We just started in the last couple of years sifting our finds. When we're taking the dirt out, we're sifting it, and we have started finding coins. We didn't used to really look. Occasionally we would spot something. We have dug like a silver $50 from the early to mid 1800s. Unfortunately, the acids that were in the pit long ago kind of ate it up pretty bad. They're kind of hard to read sometimes.
I guess who would throw the coins in the Privy, right?
Probably drop the coins. I mean, you're kind of have a chance to lose some coins here. I found pocket watches in privies, jewelry, buttons, a lot of buttons. So you just never know what they're going to drop. We found complete chamber pots and dishes that are complete, and sometimes you wonder if they dropped them or if they just thrown them out and they've all been laid as a pattern. Yes, sir.
I went to your last meeting, and my brother-in-law's a member of your group, and I was amazed to see some of the stuff that, like once a month, you have, like, you vote on who has the neatest find that they have, whether it's a coin or whatever.
Right.
And then just in that, one small month period or whatever, a guy came up, he found like a Civil War button.
Yes.
He found like a Civil War button, and somebody else found it was a 3-cent coin or something like that.
Yes. Silver 3-cent piece. There's a lot of amazing finds out there. We're pretty much talking about privy digging tonight, and that's kind of what we brought with us, but I've been metal detecting for 30 plus years. We always make sure we have permission where we go, and we share finds with the homeowners if they so desire those finds. But yeah, there is so many. This past year I found my oldest one. It was a 1746 King George copper.
And then one of the guys was also talking about how they've gone over to Europe, and they've been able to find some coins and stuff there. And was it one of the guys beat you from an old dated coin? One of the members, he found something that was like way before BC type.
Oh yeah, yes. He found a Celtic or something coin from probably something BC or something AD. It was really old. I forget what it was exactly. But if you go to England, you got a lot more opportunity to find stuff like that. We're lucky if we get 200 years old here in the States. But we do have a lot of fun with the metal detecting. Yes.
Approximately how many privy digs would you do in a given year, or does it vary?
It varies. Doing privy digs, I guess the biggest task, tough chore, whatever you want to call it, is getting permission. You have to find a place and research it and know that's something you're interested in, and you have to go knock on the door. I go through a lot of friends and family that know people. I talk about it at work and that, and sometimes people just say, hey, you come out and check out our place, and that's great. But when we run out of permission, that's when we go knock on doors, and you have to tell somebody, hey, I'm going to go dig a big hole in your backyard about 10 feet deep. Is that okay? It's tough stuff. But fortunately for us, a lot of the privy digs that we do are in parts of towns. I'm referring to the city of Dayton in particular, and Cincinnati and so forth. We're in the rough side of the town where it's pretty run down, and a lot of attitudes are knock yourselves out, they don't care. So. Yes, sir.
Do you have a central location for the artifacts that you find?
We just got acceptance from the Dayton Library. We're going to put a display in the Dayton Library. I want to try to make that all Dayton bottles. I'm currently working on a book on Dayton sodas. So yes, we do. And we post the finds on forums and try to get it out there and circulate as much as possible. We do share a lot. I've got bottles on loan and bottles donated to various museums, historical societies, and so forth. That's a big importance to me too, is to get it out there and let other people get to share it. Yes, sir.
Did you ever dig old dug wells?
Wells, there's usually not not a lot of trash in them. Usually by the time they were abandoned, it was kind of late, and there's usually nothing really exciting in them. Right now, Gary Lights, old Mayor Dayton, has been trying to get me to go back and finish digging his well. He bought one of the oldest houses in my neighborhood and restored it, and there was a huge well there, limestone line. I think we're about 14 feet deep down in it right now. And he wants to restore the well. So we may end up digging out. Wells can be really deep though, you just never know. Usually don't get too much payout, but we don't call it that. Yes, ma'am.
So the bigger part of your digging is your choice. You don't have that many people asking you.
I have had, if I do like some advertising, I'll do on Craigslist occasionally, an ad, or print up some flyers and drop around neighborhoods, and I'll get people to call me. The Dayton Daily News did an article on me in like 2005, something like that, and I got flooded with calls. So it's just getting your name out there to a lot of people and give them a chance to think about it, rather than just knocking on the door, they don't know who you are or anything.
Do you typically get something out of every one you dig, or do you sometimes just not find it?
That's a very good question. I forgot to touch on that. There's been plenty of times where we have dug our 10-foot deep hole by 4-foot diameter, filled it all back in, and was standing there going, huh, would have been nice. More often than not, you get a few bottles. Occasionally you get a lot of bottles, and there's seems to go dry spells where you don't get anything. Very good question.
What does the steel ball bearing on the end do for you?
The steel ball bearing serves a couple purposes. The diameter of this steel is smaller than the ball on the end. So instead of having all the ground resistance all the way down, pushing this thing down, I now have a little ball at the end that's going to push and take up most of the friction, and this is going to go down the ground a lot easier. Sometimes kind of hard to contemplate how that works, I guess, but it's basically making a bigger hole, and the rest of that's not dragging as it's going down. Also, it's rounded. It doesn't poke a hole so easily in the glass.
Okay.
So there's a couple features.
Because I've used a lot of probes before and never had any problem getting them in the ground, you know, unless you get a cobble or something like that.
Right. Yes, Roger?
Two questions. When you bring the probe back out of the ground, it usually has residue on the end of it because of the larger diameter, right?
That is another point Roger brings up. There will be a little sample of pretty much what I saw at the bottom, and I pull this back up. It'll give me just a little sample, and if I see ash in there, which is a lot of times a giveaway, or if I push it down all the way into what we call the use layer, it may be black on the tip, very black. One thing about Privy's is, and it's kind of nasty to think about it, I guess, a little bit, but they're in the bottom, there's usually a seed layer. And the seeds are the seeds from tomatoes and cucumbers and so forth that were eaten and consumed 100-some years ago.
The second question is, privy digging in the city versus privy digging in the country?
Yes, another good point. City privies, by necessity, were deep so that they could dispose of their trash. If you lived in the country, you typically built a little shack over top of a 2-foot deep hole, and you threw all your balls and jars over in the creek bank or behind a barn. So country places are typically not productive. They're not very good for privy digging. There are exceptions.
Did you ever do any digging in Springboro?
I have not. I have a really old, well, it's a reprint of some kind of thing, but a plat book or something of Springboro, and was looked at a long time ago, but I really haven't made it down here yet. I'm sure there's really good potential for some digs down here. Did you have a question there?
No, my question was, did you find better things in the city than you did at
Okay.
farmhouse
All right.
and country?
What's the furthest place you've ever privy dig?
What's that?
The furthest place that you've done a privy dig?
The furthest away?
Yes. Do you go to like other major cities?
Well, you know,
Hillsborough?
I do travel. I've been down to Fredericksburg, Virginia, in that area a lot, but mostly dump digging, metal detecting.
Done any digging in Hillsborough?
Yes, thank you. I knew you were fishing for something. Hillsborough. How can I forget about Hillsborough? You can actually go online and look for Hillsborough. The newspaper down there is the Times Gazette, I believe it is. If you Google Hillsborough Privy Dig, you'll probably find it. We did Privy Dig for them down there for the, what is that place called? The Highland House, I believe it is, in Hillsborough. They have a museum in there, and they invited us out there to check the place out. We did find a large cistern that we dug. It was 8 foot across, big thing, and it was full of stuff from probably teens and 20s era. I got a nice amber straight-sided Coke out of the dig. I ended up donating everything I got. And basically what we did in the pit, same way with Spring Valley, is we put all the diggers got a number, or I'm sorry, we counted how many diggers there were, plus the Historical Society. Everybody got like 1 through 9, threw them in a hat, and we picked. And whoever got number 1 got to pick the first ball, whoever got number 2 picked the second ball, and so forth and on until we either picked all the balls or we decided the museum could have the rest. That way everybody gets a chance to get something, come back with something they collect, and the museum gets plenty of stuff. And that's kind of what we did with Hillsborough. I ended up donating my stuff back to them later when I did a presentation for them. And that was a lot of fun. There's probably 2 videos and some newspaper articles out there on that. And we're supposed to go back down here soon. We still haven't done the Privy yet. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
I want to make sure we leave it on your show.
Do that.
That's his story.
I like to play that foreman role a lot.
What would you say are some of the main motivations for your members of your group that did privies?
I'll start it off with how it started with me is, I don't know, maybe it's a birth defect or something, but as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in history. Anything old, if somebody had something old and they said they were collecting something old, I wanted to collect it too when I was a little kid. And in the 70s, the beer can craze took off. All the kids, every kid in my neighborhood was collecting beer cans. So I said, oh, I've got to collect beer cans too. So I'd go out and I could walk through the neighborhood and find cans off in the weeds somewhere. I don't have that one. Take that one home, and my friends come over. I don't have that one, but I've got this one. We trade and started developing some interest in collecting and fraternizing with other people in clubs and so forth. And then there was the coins. I found out that if you go through the big piggy bank coins that you have, you might find wheat pennies. And I thought, wheat pennies? Wow, that's old. That's cool. So that progressed on. And then finally, after so many years of metal detecting and finding old balls and stuff in the woods, I found a ball that said Sour Extracts, Dayton, Ohio, and I couldn't wait to get home to look it up on the internet. I found out that people dig balls like that out of privies, and it's been like that ever since. For me, it's a passion that just kind of takes off once you do. It's like opening a Christmas present. You dig that big hole, and down there in the bottom, by golly, there's the new soda that you've been looking for your collection, or there's, you know, something from this town that you didn't even know existed, a new one for the books. I mean, to me, it's fascinating.
Well, back in the 70s, late 70s, I had an opportunity, I was an inspector on a road job, and it was for Dryden Road in the city of Moraine. And contractor B.G. Danis was cutting across with a water line. And sure enough, I should have known, you know, because I've been working on some of the surveying stuff on it back in the office, but that was the old Miami Canal.
Right.
And when he dug across,
How many balls did you dig up?
oh no, he dug across the canal, and I was infatuated because I saw this trapezoidal canal bed right there.
Oh, yeah.
And all I saw was, I don't know if it was freshwater clams or something like that lined the bottom, and then it had a layer of debris. And yes, I found some really cool embossed bottles. Of course, I set them up in the hoe operator's cab and said, watch these for me. And when the day was over with, he was gone, and so were the bottles. You know? But it was really cool to see the Miami Area Canal.
Oh, yes.
The cross-section
Right.
of it, it was just dug right through.
Pretty much all that canal has a lot of bottles and stuff in it, because once they pretty much quit using it, it became a big public dumping ground, so. I'd say, you know, with the historical interest that I have in everything, from metal detecting, we also do, like I say, dump digging, we also collect beer cans today. We even find them in dumps, rusty beer cans that you can't even tell what they were. You can soak them in a mild acid, takes the rust off, and some of them are very flexible even that way. So there are members in the club that dig all kinds of different stuff. That's why we're called the Dayton Diggers. We're not the Dayton metal detectors, the Dayton Privy diggers, we're the Dayton Diggers. We have people that are interested in artifacts, bottles, cans, you name it. Gold prospecting. Roger's really into gold prospecting, which is fun too. It's just not as fun in Ohio, at least to me. Although I did spend one day out in a spot that was known for gold in Ohio, and by the end of the day, if I hold this little glass vial up to the light just right and point to it, you can probably see the flakes of gold in there. They're almost big enough to see with the naked eye. Yes?
Any Indian artifacts?
You know, I have a great interest in Native American artifacts. I've always been in walk fields. I'm looking for stuff. Everywhere I walk, I look down at the ground. It's not because I'm depressed, because I like to look for stuff. So I have dug numerous Indian artifacts just by being in the right place, I guess, at the right time. And I like to, when I get my artifacts, I like to document those on the back of a piece of tape on them, so I'm telling what I found. A lot of things going around these days. Kind of give it a little bit of a background. It's nice to have.
What's the most valuable thing you found?
There is a great deal of value in some of the bottles and jars that we find. Collectors go nuts over this stuff. Like I said, I can't collect everything. I've not got room for jars, so I probably will be in the market to sell jars when I find. And some items can have a lot of value, like these bottles here, this circa 1870 ale, with just a fancy script H on here, outline H, which meant it was from the hydraulic brewery. I had somebody offer me $500 for one. And I said, I've got 3 of them. Sure. And I took that money and invested that into crates and stuff that are go-withs, as we call it, signs, crates, etc. So there's potential value. What's the most expensive thing found? I don't generally sell stuff, but I'm getting where I got too many bottles and I do end up selling or trading vendors. One of the members, I don't think he's a current member now, but he lives in Lancaster, Ohio, so a little too far from the drive. But I took him to a place in Melotech and he found a 1916 D Mercury head dime. He's been offered $2,500 for it. It's a very rare day, very collectible. So occasionally you can find something. Am I a treasure hunter? I'm not a treasure hunter. I am a history hunter. Because the value in this stuff is the history to me. But if I can sell or trade it for other go-withs and gas money and stuff, occasionally I'll do that. Yes, sir?
When I do education programs, I ask kids, do you know the difference between a question and a story? And I'm in a great primary rule. I got a story as opposed to a question. But to piggyback on that in terms of history, he knows that one of the things I collect are old fruit jars. There is a company in Pittsburgh back right about the time of the Civil War called Famistock and Albury. They put F and A on the bottom of all their jars. And they made jars in Pittsburgh that would take a cork. You can see some of them up in the front there. You can put a cork in them and seal them with wax. When this guy by the name of Mason got a patent for this spiral of glass around the neck of the jar, so you could screw on a cap, all those cork closures disappeared. Famistock and Albury went out of business about the time that patent really caught on, and it was assumed that they went out of business because they couldn't make a jar like that. And about 20 years ago, it turned up in New Jersey, one jar with F&A company on the side of it with a spiral glass neck. And it's sitting in the Corning Museum in New Jersey, and they've priced that thing somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000. 2 years ago, just south of Columbus, a Privy digger dug another jar like that. And since they got it out of the Privy, about 150 miles from Pittsburgh, it meant they made them and they sold them.
Wow.
Because it turned up in a Privy.
Yes.
And so sometimes these amateur archaeologists turn up artifacts that, again, in the hands of a general digger or collector, may not mean a whole lot, but if you get them in the hands of some history
Right.
people,
There's new stuff being added to the books all the time, thanks to people like us too. that Things that were not known about or only suspected before, and we kind of prove. And here's proof right here. Yes, I know the guys down in Cincinnati that dig Privies or been digging them long time. They've dug, sold stuff. I think they sent one call to Glassworks auction, got $13,000 for it. You just never know. I've never found a big dollar item like that, but you just never know when you do. Or when you will.
What we see on television, and we'll know that everybody else will start doing it too.
Yeah, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But I think it's probably, what time is it? It's probably about wrapping up tonight. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.